Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember it from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast. Hello, fairy friends. Welcome back to another season 2 deep dive of Fate the Winx Saga on the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine, and I am, of course, joined by my ever amazing guest co-host, Dane, or JustDaneDane on TikTok. Can you believe we're already to episode 5? Like, that's crazy.
Right? I'm so excited because this is like, I think we've talked about it a little bit, but it's like one of the best episodes, if not maybe the best episodes. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that happens, but do you want to catch our listeners up on what happened last episode?
Yeah, so last episode, a fun pub night in town was interrupted by some alarming news. Beatrix was kidnapped by the Blood Witches, sending students into a dangerous confrontation where Sky was forced to make like a hard decision and Musa's powers were drained.
Ooh, yeah, and it left us on that big cliffhanger of just Riven holding like a lifeless Musa just like dangling in his arms. Oh my
Very
gosh, the
season 1
drama.
Winx Club, like, yeah.
Yes, very, very. And we might get some more. I mean, we will get some more
Mhm.
review moments in this episode. So very excited. So the synopsis of episode 5 of Fate the Winx Saga season 2 reads: Tara shares an update with the group. Ooh. And while Musa tries to keep a secret, Bloom strikes a risky bargain with Sebastian in exchange for some startling information. I'm telling you, like, I feel like it's been building, like the episodes have been building and building and building, like just more and more like drama, like in a
Right?
good way. Like it's been like suspenseful, it's been cool, but like they just keep layering it on. I'm like, how thick does this get? It gets pretty thick this
Yeah, I
episode.
like how it's like a boiling pot of water, and sometimes it, like,
Yeah.
simmers down a little bit, but then just layers up when you least expect it, so.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get into breaking down the episode scene by scene. So Bloom, Silva, and Rosalind try to set up a trap for Sebastian in the burner glade. However, it doesn't work, and he now starts to grow stronger and stronger with all of the fairy magic he's accumulating from different realms that they said. This is really cool.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so too.
they alluded to it in the last episode, but, like, he is, like, stealing magic from other realms, just like in season three's Valtor, stealing magic from other realms and relics and things like that to get stronger. So, I mean, I love that little nod to original Valtor.
Also, Fake Avalon in season 2 when the girls attacked the Mysterious Stone or the Dark Tower, depending on which dub you
Right.
watched, but he was like Fake Avalon had all the fairy magic, like, in his hands, so it's kind of like
Oh my god.
a combination as this
Mhm.
new Sebastian Valtor character, and I feel like that just, like, rings true to Winx, so
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
I really like this scene because the reveal of how everybody who was cloaked in magic coming a little bit later is very, like, show don't tell. As the viewer, we had no idea Bloom was surrounded by everybody part of,
Mhm.
or we had no idea that Bloom was surrounded by, like, Silva and Rosalind and other specialists. So just kinda seeing that is, like, very YA coded formatting for TV, and I really like
Yeah.
that. And I think it rings true to what Eugenio said about Winx in the 2014 interview, 10 Years of Winx, which was, like, published in Fantasy Magazine. He said that Winx was, like, heavily inspired by American teen dramas and comics, and now it's, like, so
Mhm.
poetic that we see it in this format, but it's, like, even I don't know, it's, like, its own thing
Yeah.
here, so I really like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
In this scene, like, everybody's frustrated with how Sebastian suspects an ambush, and nobody knows who the spies are. But during this entire moment, Rosalind's like using this to her advantage, and that's when she like informed Silva that like six more fairies had been drained, like you said earlier. And
Mhm.
she's really making it sound like she's on their side here, even though it's very obvious to us that she's not.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me too that in this episode, like, Bloom even still thinks that Rosalind is on their side, and I know that, like, they've set that up in the way that she's supposed where she is as a character supposed to think that, but
Mhm.
yeah, we're over here like, "Girl, don't like, what?"
Yeah,
Like,
there's
"Don't
so
do
much
it."
skepticism too. It's like they can like kind of trust Rosalind, but they still
Mhm.
really don't know. So I think it's like everybody's just on edge here. And I think that that's a really
Mhm.
fun kind of dramatic element to this series. Um,
Absolutely.
the Blood Witches base. I think it's so interesting how they set this up because we see like eerie lamps, outfits, like very just dusty vibes in this area. The electricity is
Mhm.
not reliable. They're using like oil
Yeah.
lamps and stuff. So
Yes.
it's very true to the continuity from season one, where Rosalind said that only fairies were allowed to use magic in the other world. Something
Yes.
I, like, kind of forgot about until I revisited it recently, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was a thing." Different
Wild.
setup, though, from, like, Winx Club, because, like,
Mhm.
in Winx Club, we see so many different, like, magical beings, and I feel like here
Mhm.
it's very different, so
Yeah, it's very classist, honestly. Like, only this certain class of people gets this certain privilege, and it's like, maybe they were born with it, whatever, but that seems very,
it makes you
yeah,
wonder if, like, if the series had continued on, if we would have seen this unraveling of that dynamic into something a little bit
yeah,
more vibrant and magical. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, wow.
Sebastian on the chair, can we talk about that?
Mm,
Because that is
so gross.
so gross. Like, seeing the scraper, like, actually do that and then, like, pump magic into him, right? And then we also see
Yuck.
all the scrapers on the ceiling. Just nasty.
Just so nasty, just so gross, but, I mean, and we keep saying it, but, like, the scrapers are literally the scrapers from season 1 of Winx Club, like,
But, like,
they look
way deeper than
but
that.
way
Like,
grosser, yeah, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like, it's yeah, it's
They got, like,
bravo
a
Winx Club.
tune-up, yeah. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So then we get the next scene in the halls of Althea. Bloom, Stella, and Aisha are walking and talking about Sebastian flaking before seeing Rosalind across the hallway, belittling Yusa's request for a break from chore duty since she no longer has her magic. So sad. I mean,
right?
but like, is it because I feel like, well, I mean, maybe I should save this for later, but like, she never liked her powers. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's like a mix of both, because I feel like she had benefits to it, like, she used them when she needed them,
That's
so
true.
I don't know. Maybe she's testing the waters without them, but,
Yeah.
um, I just thought this scene was really funny, though, because Stella thinks that he's flaking because he knows that Rosalind's nearby, and Aisha's just being a realist, like, maybe
Mhm.
realizing that maybe he knows that meeting the keeper of the dragon flame is likely not in his best interests, and Bloom's just over here like pleading for optimism out of this entire
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, when Bloom's like, "Best case scenario, we capture him. The worst case scenario, we'll get answers." And Stella's like, "Is that really the worst case you can think of?"
Yeah, yeah.
They catch, like, Misa doing her janitorial work without her powers, obviously, and, like, that was probably, like, the nod to the actual worst case scenario of Bloom losing her powers, like, her after she said that, and then they all see, like, Musa just, like, like, sweeping,
Yeah, the way they
like,
pan the
without her
camera.
magic. Yes.
I love that, and that's, like, another cinematic kind of element to the way that they set
Mhm.
these. I really love the, like, flow that kinda goes from one moment to the next, and I feel like
Yeah.
that's just, like, such a magical thing to have in a young adult fantasy show, like, it's very hard to
Yeah.
do that well, so,
Right.
I think her doing janitorial work too is such a nod to season 1. I remember, like, in the Nickelodeon
Yes.
special, The Fate of Bloom, the first one, Uh,
Mhm.
she said that her philosophy was that anything goes better with music, even cleaning floors. And now we just see her like sick and tired of mopping and like the complete 180 from this type of vibe. So,
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, that's such a good point because and even, like, in season 1, they had their powers removed from them and cleaned the school as a
yeah.
punishment, and this isn't a punishment for Musa by any means in Fate, but the parallels are still there, like, that's so funny. Oh
Also,
my
I remember
gosh.
she threw like the mop or the broom to Riven, and it's kind of funny how in this
Mhm.
episode, like, obviously Riven was not about cleaning the school, but he's all about training Musa here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That episode it's the same well, oh no, that was last episode. I was about to say, it's the same episode that he carried her, but that was last episode. It's close enough.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, we skip ahead to Beatrix on courier duty, unlocking the Alfea mailbox to give Stella a mysterious package to which she points out as a Solarian seal, like an official Solarian, like, royal seal. And Stella reveals it's from her mom, explaining that she wrote to her a few days ago seeking forgiveness, but also a favor. And it seemed to have paid off because, well, she has this little package now. When Beatrix asks to know more, Bloom kind of like shoots Stella a look. And then Stella shoots a look like back at Bloom. And it kind of like was very frustrating to Beatrix. So when Bloom and Aisha walk off, Stella promises she'll text Beatrix later. Stella insists that they can trust Beatrix, but Bloom and also Aisha pretty much like remain skeptical. A powerful argument erupts with Bloom defending Rosalind's day one loyalty, saying that Musa still wouldn't be at Althea without her being so close, without Bloom being so close to Rosalind. And then meanwhile, Aisha teases both of them about how terrible their judgment is.
And this is all part of this setup. Like, Aisha is usually right. Like, I feel like here, like, Aisha kind of knows that something is up. Meanwhile, like, they have this little back and forth going on.
Mhm.
Um, it's just poetic and perfect for who these characters are. So,
Absolutely.
I think episode 3 or episode 4, when Rosalind and Bloom were running into, wait, no, let me think. Which one was it? I think we talked about this last time.
Oh, yes, and Rosalind and Bloom awkwardly run into Stella in Rosalind's, like, not waiting area, but kind of like that little admin area. She's like, "I was just looking for a piece of mail from my mom."
And then here we see a
Yeah.
piece of mail. Is it the same mail, or was the Beatrix favor asked later?
I think so the what she asked for was the convergence crystal, and Musa hadn't
Mhm.
lost her magic yet, so it probably
Maybe just like an
wasn't.
excuse.
Yeah, 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 I think it was just
Okay,
an excuse last episode, but
sounds good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Funny,
If
oh my
you
gosh.
if you watch this scene very closely, though, as they're all walking back to the school, you can actually see a Beatrix staring back at Stella pretty gloomily, like, for a moment. Like, it's kinda sad, but I love how
Yeah.
Fate, like, has these small details that can, like, be missed so easily,
Mhm.
such as in episode 3 with B walking into the mixer part of the alumni banquet. Like, had they gotten a season 3, I feel like we would have seen a lot more of this Stella Trix dynamic that we get in little
Yeah,
glimpses here. So,
I know. Wow. That's just yeah, what we could have had. I'm gonna keep
right?
saying it. Yeah, and yeah, wow, we don't that'll be a different episode, us talking about the comics, but yeah, we'll get there eventually. We've gotta finish this rewatch first.
Um,
So, and oh, do you wanna do this one?
yeah, I'd love to do this one.
Okay,
Yeah,
for
sounds
sure.
great. In the greenhouse, Flora is working on a potion to cancel out blood witch control, while a well healed but magicless Musa chats with Tara about nursing her back to health. Playful banter about relationships erupts with Riven and Gray's arrival before Tara then excuses the guys, to which Riven says Silva actually needs Musa for further debriefing about what happened at the lodge. Tara nervously confirms with Flora that her secret, being gay, remains safe.
Wow. Wow.
This
Wow.
scene,
This
this scene. Perfect.
this
I yeah,
little, like, Musa Terra's relationship, like, the Riven Musa stuff, like, the Flora Terra stuff, like, there's just so much happening, and it was such a short scene too.
right? But we see all these little details in it, like,
Mhm.
not only do you see, like, Musa and Terra really blossoming, like or not only do you see Musa and Terra's friendship really blossoming in this moment, you kinda see that Flora's, like, hoarding all the willow bark for her own mission, and then also Riven being, like, a tragic nerd in disguise, like, as said by Terra last season, like, knowing his herbs and, like there was,
Mhm.
like, a seed planted in season 1 that he's like a delinquent, but he's like an intellectual delinquent.
Yes.
Season 1, episode 3, when they were getting ready for the party back in their dorm, Riven had a book called The Prince by Machiavelli, which is like a really well-known piece of literature regarding like crafting and maintaining power and authority. And I just think it's so interesting knowing Riven as like a character from Winx Club, but also kind of some of the like season 1 Riven versus Sky moments
Mhm.
that like that's very Riven. Like, he wants to
Oh,
be, like, the
yeah.
leader of the specialists or, in control, in power. It's
Mhm.
just a very interesting nod to who that character was.
It's also interesting because in the, like, prequel books that we got from oh my god, I'm gonna blank on her name. I literally
Oh,
had her on the podcast. Sarah Reeves Brennan.
yeah.
The prequel books that we got from Sarah Reeves Brennan during the Netflix era of Winx Club, it was alluded to that, like, yeah, he was, like, this nerd and, like, him and Tara were close and, like, all this stuff, and, like, I just love, like, that addition to the Fate world of, like, those written novels were so sweet, and, like, Sarah did such a good job with them too, and, like, yeah, like, having those insights to the characters watching this is really cool.
For sure, yeah.
Sad. I wish she could have continued on
Right? Oh my
with
god.
writing them. Oh, no. Okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
I need to stop bringing up the comic.
Here, I'm gonna drink some water.
Okay. So
Um,
outside Althea it is
yeah.
teasing as they banter about the Terra aerobics and what happened at the lodge, which Musa thanks him before he heads off to training. She asks to join him, hoping to avoid another debriefing with Rosalind by using the of claiming to be helping the specialists. And Riven actually agrees weekly too, like for Riven, let's be clear,
Yeah,
for Riven, and like suggests that she can help him with sparring. And that's cute. Like that's fun. We love that. But it's such a different tune than what we hear in the next episode. Like
very different. Yeah.
very different. And so, yeah, it's just so that I thought that, that was interesting during this rewatch.
I just think he's so funny here, like that, "Oh, she's got you doing yoga shit" kinda moment, and, like, his attitude is just very like, he's playful and funny about what he says.
Mhm.
He's yeah, he's still a bad boy,
Still
and
Riven. Still
yeah.
Riven. Yeah.
Musa made, like, a comment about how she could, like, down dog her powers back, which is, like, a yoga pose. I know it's, like, a little bit of
Mhm.
some random trivia here, but I had to look that one up because, like, I
Oh,
wasn't
did you?
sure about it at first. Yeah, I was like, "Wait, I swear I've heard that before." And so, yeah, it's like it actually has some, like, ancient, like, Sanskrit type history to the
Oh,
word, which has also been referenced previously in Winx Club, like, with Maya in season 3.
look at
So
that. Is
I
that the
know,
new
I'm on
thing
my
that you saw that you're like, "Oh my god."
yeah, I guess it's like a little history moment there, but no, that one is yeah, no, that one I think I had that one in there,
Oh, okay,
but
nice.
yeah, appreciate that just 'cause, like, it's like a history moment, but yeah, it's
Oh my
so
gosh.
oh, this scene, this next one, uh
Mhm.
in Bloom's room, she and Sky catch up and reflect on recent events. Bloom ponders offering Sebastian a bribe, with Sky suggesting the Blood Witch book. The moon turns the mood turns serious as Bloom accuses Sky of using her as a distraction. He tries to lighten things up, but Bloom remains distant as Sky leaves for guard duty. In the middle of the
Mm.
suite, Bloom confides in Aisha about Sky's struggles. Aisha suggests focusing on Sebastian, revealing a plan to recharge Muse's magic using the convergence crystal. She acknowledges her past mistake, but assures Bloom that they'll tackle this together, warning Bloom about Sebastian's manipulative tactics. So we
Because
learn
I
here that
Yep,
number
yeah,
one, like he doesn't want to talk about how he feels here, and I feel like that's very obvious because he's trying to deflect from it in the middle of this little makeout session. While Bloom's like,
yep.
you can't keep doing that. You gotta stop.
Which, like,
It's
good for
healthy.
her. Yes, make him feel his
Right?
feelings.
Like, I feel like that's
Ugh.
the great thing about the magic being tied into emotions here too. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's also kind of a given that she's emotionally aware of the fact that he's not very emotionally aware.
Ah!
So, yeah, or maybe he is aware of it, but he's just not emotionally mature enough to express how he actually feels.
I
So,
think, yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Oh,
But we learned that
man.
fairy magic is like a battery. At least that's kind of the theory, which is very true for Winx. Like I feel like that's a very Winx Club type of vibe as well.
Yeah.
It's never really been explained other than maybe season 1 when Bloom got her magic back after she
Mhm.
thought the tricks had like stolen it from her. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that was
Well,
like a really cool thing.
I had a question for you, Mr. Winx comic scholar. Do they ever mention in the Winx comics the, like, hub of, like, magical energy and magics?
I don't know. I don't remember if they said anything about where the magic actually comes from. I do know
Mhm.
that they've explained like the dynamics of like they're kind of in like I have a theory about this actually, but it's a little out there just because I've seen some things that almost make me wonder if the magic dimension is somehow linked to like a dream type of world.
I just
So,
got goosebumps.
yeah, so
Wait.
and the theory about this is because the nightmare monsters or like the monsters
Mhm,
in the Winx Club comics alternate universe are born from the nightmares of people. They
mhm.
cross over from the nightmares of people into the magic
The
dimension.
world.
What's interesting about that is that sometimes fairy magic doesn't work on certain monsters. The explanation's a little weird. They said something about the
Yeah.
monsters don't have fantasy to them, so maybe they're like very real, and so their
Mhm.
powers aren't as
Oh.
effective. But the reason why I say it's like it's very connected to dreams is that not only is that like directly linked to dreams, but I was reading
Mhm,
one of the comics and the station name for like the train or the bus or something was called
mhm.
Delta. And I was like, that's like a state of your like brain. Like that's like, like
Yeah.
delta waves or like something like that.
Oh
Like
my
it's
gosh.
very related to sleep. So it makes me also like kind of wonder, is this all just happening in Bloom's dream?
Is it a
But
Dorothy effect?
right, right. So
Oh,
did she
wow.
fall asleep under the tree at the park?
Oh my god. Crazy.
But yeah.
Okay, well, I brought up the magics, like, thing because I remember reading somewhere, gosh, I don't know, it's been years. It might be in one of my Encyclomagic, like, books where it said that the city of magics and, like, the planet of magics is, like, the central hub for all, like, magical, like, energy, like, all of the magic in the universe runs and flows out of Magic's city, and Magic's city is like the city. Wow. And, like, Althea and, like, the schools and stuff, they're all powered by magic, like Althea and Fate. And like, Magic City, like, the skyline and, like, how, like, the little
Yeah,
loopies
yeah.
are what they're what the magic travels through to get delivered to, like, houses and, like, buildings and stuff. So and, gosh, it's gonna kill me, like, I can't or I don't need to say that. It's gonna bother me, I that I can't, like, remember where that's from, but I know
I
that that's, like,
mhm.
canonically correct somewhere.
Yeah, okay, that would make sense too, like, because we do see I've always wondered what the structures were, like
Yes.
yeah, and that would make
So
sense in the practical kind of sense of, like, how they describe magics and the
Mhm.
magic dimension, like, when Bloom's like, "Oh, where are the, flying dragons and stuff like that," which is funny too, 'cause we
Yeah.
eventually see dragons, but,
Right.
but yeah, like,
Oh.
I think there is definitely a modern relatability aspect to pretty much
Mhm.
every Winx story that there's, like, a level of grounded reality. It's not so high fantasy that you feel like you're in you're
like
in some kind of
Narnia or
yeah,
like
like Narnia,
Lord of
like
the
something
Rings.
out there, so yeah.
Yeah, and so why so the magic battery thing. The stone circle is literally like magic's like hub, like to like power everything. Like it powers like literally everything at Althea. It powers the barrier. It powers like it literally like plays into that whole like fairy magic as a battery thing. And like that's where Rosalind recharged Bloom in season one, you know?
Yeah,
Like
that's where Bloom charged the
it's
key too.
oh
Yeah,
yes!
so
Yes. Crazy. Anyway, those
point
are my
though.
ramblings.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
It comes into play here though, because she, like,
Mhm.
wants to apologize or actually she does apologize to Bloom for, leaving her to deal with everybody at the pub, and she really didn't
Yeah.
wanna leave originally, but she did and then felt guilty after all this happened, and so I think, like, it's very true to her role as, like, second in command to the Winx, like, I feel like that's, like, a very universal thing for any Winx story with Aisha in it. Like, I feel like she is kind of in that, like, next in line. If there was somebody taking, like,
Mhm.
leadership, it's her. So
Mm. Yeah.
but that also
Yeah,
makes the
I get
ending of
that.
this season even more heartbreaking because of what happens here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We will get there eventually. Oh my gosh. So later that night, Sky is guarding Althea, or supposed to be, at night, and he drowns his sorrows with some whiskey, haunted by flashbacks of killing Andreas before being knocked unconscious by a mysterious hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him here, like, coping as a teenager in this entire situation must
Oh.
be pretty hard, right? Like, especially in the moments where, like, you kinda see the angry drunk, like, slip out when he tells the
Mhm.
students to get back to their fucking dorms, like,
Yeah.
very Andreas type of vibe coming out, and,
Mhm.
Brian Young, the showrunner for Fate the Winx Saga, talked about how season 1 was, like, exploring who am I, with season
Mhm.
2 transitioning into who do I want to become. And there's still a little bit of
Yeah.
season 1 in here, but I feel like moments like this, like when you really immerse yourself into the story as if it were real, are just as heartbreaking, um, as it's kind of clear that he's struggling with, like, navigating through this grief that he's experiencing because of what he's gone through with
Mm.
his father. Like, this young man spent years believing his father died a hero, only to discover that he didn't, and that the man who raised him
Might
involved in
have
his dad's
killed him.
attempted murder, right? Right? So, and then, of course,
Right.
after meeting his father, he finds him to be a jerk, and then he goes off and, like, finally makes some progress with him, with the best case scenario during that fight just ending up being that he had to kill his own dad. So, but it's also very true for Winx Club. Like, this whole plot line is really dark, but it is so in line with Winx Club because not only do we have, like, an emotional history of, like, darker, kind of like grittier stories like this, but
Yeah.
in the comics, there's actually a really specific one I want to talk about. Number 45, it's called Suspicion and Deceit. It dives into the extreme lengths people will go in order to take out Sky's father.
Yeah,
So,
because, like, there's a lot of, like, unrest in Heraklion, like,
mhm.
always, and
Military
that wasn't
conflict, yeah.
mhm, and, like, that was one of the things that, like, why he even switched identities in the first place, because like, there was a high chance that he could have gotten kidnapped, and then
Yeah,
Diaspro did get kidnapped, and then, like, all these things. That's heavy for a kids show.
right? But I feel like that's also, like, kind of why so many of us watched Winx, like, especially growing up, is because it did give
Mhm.
us something that wasn't so much of, like, a Disney kind of neat, happy bow type of ending, or, like,
Yeah.
realism where if you were, like, kind of experiencing, like, the gravities of life around you in real life, this show was, like, not gonna totally sugarcoat it. They did a
Yeah.
little, it was still a little bit more emotionally, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree with that, and I
and then
think
Fate
that
is like, oh, I was just gonna say, and then Fate is kinda like this unfiltered, like, it's like if they took Winx Club and, like, completely unfiltered it, like, so
That's so true, though, and to be fair, like, I've always, 'cause I mean, I grew up with the 4 Kids dub, and the 4 Kids dub
Same, yeah.
had some very, like, adult, like, themes in them that, like, I've always thought, like, if this was an actual adult show, like, it would be pretty raunchy. Like, it would be pretty, like,
But it'd
out
also be
there.
really cool, like,
It would also be really cool, and then, like, we
so
get Fate, and everyone's like, "Oh, but, like, no, this is what
you're
this
right,
is
like,
pretty
yeah.
accurate of what a Winx
So
story told like this would be."
I think it's just that medium shift of, like, the visuals changing
Mhm.
and some of the other things changing is that, like, I think a lot of
Yeah.
people also are, like especially people who aren't avid Winx fans, they kind of forget, like,
That's
what
so true.
yeah, what everything all the different areas of this, like, franchise and, like, kind of what it
Mhm.
covered, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a fair point.
But I they went that deep with it originally because if
Mhm.
you think about it, like, years later, you look back on these shows that you watched and these stories you read, and you're like, "Wow, this still holds up and it's still just as good because they told a story that was meaningful."
It had depth, it had meaning. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, totally. I know, I watched some things that I used to watch on Disney, I'm like, "Oof."
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is
Yeah,
rough, buddy. Like, were you kidding
right?
me? But, yeah, things like Winx Club, I feel like they're few and far between, but, like, they are out there that, we grew up with. I mean, like, even Avatar for me, it was like
Yeah,
that, like
Avatar's a great
and
example,
oh
so
my gosh, yeah, for sure. I know. I joke and I'm like, "Literally, Sky, you have one job," but, like, after you just said all of those, like, emotional things about what he was going through, it's like, "Damn, he really was going through it," but he's still like, "Come on, man."
you still have a job to do. Yeah,
He's still got
like
a job to do. There are literal, like, blood witches afoot. Like, this is what I don't understand. They're being so precious with, like, these with the fairies, right? Because the scrapers take magic from fairies. Sure, they attack fairies because they take their magic. But blood witches can literally control specialists. So I think that a fairy has a better chance against like a like animal like crustacean creature versus a literal blood witch with a specialist. Like, does that not
yeah.
concern anybody that they're sending like human specialist guards to go guard the school and literally blood witches can just like puppeteer them however they want? Like,
Like, they don't
that's
have, like, a
crazy.
support fairy, like, on guard
Right.
duty, and I think that
Yes.
that's, mm,
Oh my gosh.
not good leadership, but also, is it intentional because Rosalind kinda knows what she's doing?
Wait, wait. Probably though. Oh my god.
So there was a mole in the school too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know, it's kinda hard to, because like, Rosalind still wasn't on the team of the Blood Witches.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could just
Yeah.
be faulty writing, it could just be that the adults really were preoccupied like they always are in this show, so
So true, they could not be bothered with, like, protecting any of these
yeah.
literal children. They're like, "Actually, go fight in this war. You're grown, you're 16." So terrible. Oh my gosh. Get even more magical content when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media. So in the Althea graveyard, Bloom finds Rosalind tending to Andreas's newly engraved stone that she literally just engraved right there on the spot. Despite Rosalind's typically cold demeanor, Bloom senses her grief. And when Bloom expresses her surprise, Rosalind admits to caring deeply for Andreas, and then they share a moment of sorrow, vowing to stop Sebastian before he claims another life. And they head back to train, determined and united. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so the way she uses Andreas's death to get closer to Bloom, like, she said something like, "Sebastian has already taken one person I care about, I won't let him take another."
Yep. Yep.
Diabolical. That is
Yep.
so diabolical, like, I can't believe that sh no, I can believe she would do that actually, but, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. Also, like,
Mm.
when she's talking about the stone, she's like she kinda cracks a joke. She's like, "Simple, but it's simple, but, like, miserable, sentimental fuckwit wouldn't fit." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," like, even in death, she's like Rosalind, like, Rosalind's
Yeah.
always like, "I'm." too cool for everybody in this room kind of vibes. So
And it's so I love that approach they took to Rosalind in this season because last season I did not like who they were like building Rosalind up to be in those last episodes.
mhm.
Like it just was not the vibe of like a Winx villain or like pseudo villain. Like
Like, why would Bloom ever listen to somebody who sounded
I
like
know, exactly. So,
Yeah.
like, they had to give her this, like, really, like, sarcastic, like, sense of humor and, like, just very, like, above it all. Because honestly, like and it might be Rosalind's influence in this season too, but honestly, like, Bloom is kinda that way too in this season.
Yeah.
Like, she keeps like, walking around with her little dragonfire flame, be like, "But I have the dragon
Yeah, I can finally,
like,
like,
chill
wield
out."
fire without burning myself.
Like,
Oh
"Hey,
my
guys, wanna see a
gosh.
trick?" The dragon flame, the most ancient power, like, known to fairy
Yeah.
kind.
See,
Oh my god.
that was something I did appreciate about that transformation sequence in season 1, which is putting it
Mhm.
lightly because overall the buildup was really cool and the aftermath was really cool, but I was not a fan
Mhm.
of just the transformation sequence itself. But
Yeah.
I did like how when Netflix posted a video describing the thought process of how they created that, they made
Mhm.
sure that it looked like Bloom was now in control of the flame and
Yes.
like very meticulously using it rather than just like engulfing herself in fire. She was like using it so delicately. I
So
really do
that's
like that.
fair. Yeah, absolutely. Oh.
Oh wait, the stone from the Heraklion quarry. We have to talk about
Oh,
that. We gotta go
yes.
back.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Rosalind, like, mentions the headstone that she, like, got for Andreas was from Heraklion, and first of all, I just like it when, like, paid actors on a screen say the names of planets that, like, I'm familiar with from, like, this show that I've been following for 20 years. I don't know, like, there's something so nostalgic and cute about that. I'm like, "Oh, she said
Right?
Heraklion."
And it's so in character too for well, I guess
Yeah.
in character for the realm. I don't know how to put that, but I
Yeah.
guess it's yeah, it is because like Sky's father in
Yeah.
Winx Club shows up with like this big bag of gems in the 4th season to like pawn back a ring or get a ring back from the pawn shop. And so we know that Heraklion is very mineral heavy. Like the fairies of the Heraklion school all have like gems on their outfits. So
And Diaspro is literally the fairy of
yes,
quartz power. So, yeah. Is that just
it's
in the 4 Kids dub?
she is the that is her power though. Her power is like
Okay.
gems, like, modified it.
Yeah.
It's still really
It's still
cool,
accurate.
so accurate.
Oh
But
my
yeah, so I
god.
think it's like nice that we get that little nod back to that. But
Yeah.
later on though, Tara then tells Bloom, Stella, and Musa that she's gay, and everybody in the suite reacts with happiness and support.
Mm.
What I love about this scene is that when the scene opens, Stella and Aisha are pushing the couch. Listen
Mhm.
very closely. You can hear like Aisha say, "Stella, you're not pulling," which is like such a Stella move in Winx Club. Like, "Oh, do you want me to break a nail?" Or like, "I didn't
Uh-huh.
want you guys to miss out on the thrill of helping me with this like shopping jaunt." So
Yes.
that right there tells me that like they put that in there. They kind of
Mhm.
knew what they were doing with that little one-liner. So
I love that. Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
also, right? Like, also, we hear
Mhm.
Flora tell Tara they'll be here soon, okay? And
Yes.
that is like, it's just so sweet because, like, as they're like rolling up the carpet, and like, I didn't really notice that until rewatching. Um, it comes off as like a really genius aspect for the script design, like adding in these little moments that are easy to miss, but if you're really paying
Mhm.
attention, you catch them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just sweet.
Yeah, I caught that one
Um,
too because, like, I mean, Tara's probably like a nervous wreck, like, leading up to that conversation. Because, I mean, let's be real, like, the Winx Sweet Mates here in the Fate saga, like, they haven't been super close for very long, given their status in season 1. And then, like, to have these newly acquainted friends and even, like, probably Tara still feels like, I still don't know where I stand with, like, some of them, Stella. And, like, to, like, come out in this way, like, yeah, she was probably so nervous and, like,
right?
Ugh.
But it's so nice how
Anyway.
they did this scene, like, everybody
Yeah.
coming in for, like, the group hug, you know what I mean? Like, then you kind of realize, okay, they're all, like they're on the same page. They know that they're
Yeah.
not the tightest of friends, but they're friends,
Yeah,
so
well, I mean, and what they were coming there to do too, like, which we'll talk about, but, like, I mean, that was sweet. So, like, the fact that all of this was, like, all in the same, like, moment. Ah!
yeah. So thanks.
So
When Tara was, like, rambling about the, like, infamous coming out, like, gay cake,
Mhm,
she walks over to her and rests her hand, like, on her shoulder, almost as if she's helping her, like, stay grounded, like, earth fairy
mhm.
grounding, like yeah, I just thought it was, like, a sweet little moment for not only, like, who she is as a character, but also that kind of,
Yeah.
like, power element to it of, like,
Ugh,
nature. I love how they code the powers with their personalities like this. Like, I feel like some people find
yes.
it a little cliché, but I think here is, like, a
It
great example
works.
of when it's done well, and
Yes.
yeah. And then she, like, kinda, like, holds on to they hold on to each other for a moment,
Mhm,
before she recenters herself and then, delivers the news to everybody, so,
mhm.
like and I
So
think that,
cute.
like, with Stella in this season too, after being so
Ugh,
apprehensive about, like, getting close to everyone, especially Tara, she's the one who prompts her for the group hug, and that's just, like, the sweetest thing,
I
like,
know.
the shared glance from Stella, like, when she's over at the curtains and, like, before they prep the room for the convergence crystal, like, all of this is just kinda happening where you really see the depth kind of present in these dynamics, and, like, within this
Mhm.
scene, it's also like, not only just within the scene, but, like, also outside of that, like, the fact that we actually have a openly gay Winx Club member, like,
Yes,
that's
yes, yes, yes,
finally
yes.
like, it took forever, but,
Finally.
you know
We've had, like, gay coding, we've had, like, trans
Mhm.
coding, we've had, like, whatever, but, like, to have an openly out fairy is just, like, chef's
It's
kiss.
so
So
Winx,
good.
like,
It's so
it's yeah,
Winx!
like, the
Ugh.
fact that, like, even 20 years later, like, they still I guess it's a
Mhm.
little bit less than 20 years, but Winx is always, like, kind of progressive with a lot of their, like, ideas and the way that they
Messaging,
express
yeah.
things, and I feel like this is very, very that, so
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Oh, I love that.
me
Oh,
too.
the scene. I forgot about this. I just watched this, but, so in between, like, Tara's coming out and the convergence ceremony, we get the scene of Sky returning from his night shift as though nothing had happened, but Rosalind and Silva are in her office, already aware that someone broke into the East Wing in Silva's office. And Rosalind is, like, already suspicious of Sky, and now this sets her off even more. And so denies any wrongdoing and was dismissed by Silva before Rosalind had a chance to channel her magic into his mind. And so I don't think that she would have found anything because he genuinely was knocked out. Well, I mean, I guess she would have found that he was drinking.
A big
Yeah.
problem, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed that, like, Silva kinda got scared in this moment too, like, with that quick
Mm,
dismissal, like, it was definitely like, he was terrified of what she was about to do to Sky, and he didn't want
yeah.
him to have to go through that. Also, it sounds like he kind of figured out that Sky was drinking that night too, and so that's the conclusion that, he comes to a little bit later in the episode, but yeah, also whoever broke in got the, like, troop movements and asset lists, so they have some pretty big information here about, like, how everybody in Alfea is preparing to defend themselves, so
Yeah.
definitely not great.
And not just Sophia, it's like Bavarni, like, head of, like, the Solarian, like, guard or something, like,
Yeah,
she's, like,
she's
up
the
there. Like, so yeah, it's just there's a lot. I have so many questions, but, like, they're never gonna get answered, and it's fine.
right.
It's okay.
Maybe someday, if we ever get a Brian Young's version of season 3, like, I would love
Hey,
that in a graphic
I would
novel
love
or
that.
something, like, please
Yes,
go.
in any form, like, ugh, yeah, it would probably be super illegal for him, but, like, even if he was approached by, like, fans,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't
Audio
know.
they should just do an audio drama, bring back all the cast for,
Oh,
like, one last thing.
that would be so cute.
Right?
Oh, I would cry. Or even a table
Same.
read. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you wanted. Like, anyway. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll stop ranting.
So, back in the suite, the girls attempt a risky magic convergence, but Musa secretly resists, not wanting her
Mhm.
powers back, thus causing the convergence ceremony to fail. She abruptly quits the session and leaves the suite, leaving her friends confused and worried. The girls notice that something is off with their magic, and Tara runs off to track down Musa.
Oh,
So,
man.
Tara talks about in the scene when they're preparing for the
Mhm.
conversion ceremony, like trying out mineral magic, which lights up with electricity when they're all sitting on the ground together.
Mhm.
We've talked about this a bit, but I think that this kind of goes into that theory that Tara did absorb a lot of aspects of Techna from the original Winx
Mhm.
Club. Like she's a little fidgety, a little awkward. Her styles function over form, as Stella would say.
Yeah.
She's detail oriented, sometimes like over explains things, and she's now kind of moving on to crystals, which are like kind of power conductors for some
Yeah.
so um we also saw her in those big examination goggles when aiding Musa in the greenhouse earlier in the
Yes.
episode. And
Gadgets,
that's like,
gizmos.
yeah, very technical. Like,
Yes.
and I feel like that's very, very techno.
That's very
I
techno-coded.
I believe that that's kind of where they were gonna move her into more of a techno role, like, going into a 3rd season.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Man, that's so true. Like, I do have to say, I didn't like and this has nothing to do with Elliot, like, her acting or anything, but, like, the actress for Tara. This has everything to do with, I think, probably the script or, like, just them trying to shoehorn stuff in, like, I hated the delivery of that line when she was like, "I'm trying out something new with, like, minerals, like, leave me alone, like, don't judge me." Like, like, it also too was giving, like, "Oh, like, we didn't account for flora also being, like, plants and vines and stuff, so now Tara needs her own thing, and her name's Tara," which makes sense, like, earth, like, minerals stuff, like, go do that. Like, that would have been, I don't know, I felt like if they had more time, if they I feel like this is a recurring thing I keep saying. If they had more time to have set that up properly, they wouldn't have had to explain it to the audience. But
yeah,
with that line.
I agree.
Like,
I feel like it's a little expositional in a way,
yes,
but
yes.
they, like, mask it, just enough to, like, slip it through in a way where I'm like, "Okay, I see where you
Mhm.
were, like, going with it,"
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Oof, so funny.
that budget cut, they really should have just had all the original Winx from the beginning. Like,
I know.
I will
Come
die on that
on.
hill. That is, like, one of the nails in the coffin on this show. It's not the
Yeah,
outfits, it's the lack of the core diversity of how everything was set
yeah.
up originally. I feel like that's something that you have to, like we said before, you have to be all in with the Winx story. Like, you
Mhm.
can't pull out these elements that are, like, balanced for a reason. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I 100% agree. But I did really love the scene. It was so hardcore Winx vibes, and, like, I wish there was more time for scenes like this, like, in the
Yeah.
Fate series, because the togetherness, the power, like, the magic, like, oh my gosh, like, I have chills thinking about it. Like, it's so good. Oh my gosh.
Seeing Stella make that black hole was, like,
Yeah.
such a cool manipulation of light magic. I feel like that's, like, so out there. Like, a lot of people don't talk about that kind of, like, I guess, light magic, especially not for, like, fairies. I don't think in Winx Club we ever saw her use her powers like that. So
We
that's something.
barely see Stella powers at all in any of the series because of one thing or another. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
can we talk about a side real quick because I've already we haven't talked about this yet. What happened to Ricky? Why was Ricky never brought up? No, I wanted Ricky to come back into this season and, like, like, give Stella a piece of her mind and, like, whatever, or, like, she becomes part of the group. Can you imagine, like, a legit representation of a blind person in Winx Club? But,
Mhm.
like, oh my god, like, that would be crazy. Anyway, so yeah, like, Ricky, like, her old roommate that she blinded with her light, like, oh my god.
I think it's, like, the way that they never brought her back to, it's almost like a way to kinda set up for the fact that this rumor is just gonna live on with Stella for the end of time,
So
which is
true.
so sad because that happens to people all the time, like,
That's so true.
so maybe it's part of that emotional tragedy element, but I would have
Oh.
loved to have seen Ricky, like, on screen, like, that would have been so cool to
Mhm.
see, like,
Or,
maybe
like, in
yeah.
season 3, like, if Stella's on her journey to hunt down Beatrix's sisters and she goes
Mhm.
and seeks out help from an old friend,
And
or
she's, like, the seer or something, like, she could imagine, that'd be
yes!
so cool.
Oh my god, so much potential.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway. Yeah, but, like, I think that, like, light magic is so OP, like, the way that they introduced it, the way that they, like, were exploring it, I just wish we saw more of it.
I hope that we get a little bit more of that in the reboot, like,
Mhm.
some maybe some more light beyond just, like, dazzling bright yellow and white
Shimmering,
colors, like
yeah, that would be really nice. You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are dropped. Hello, fairy friends, and happy 20 years of Winx Club. I'm Lola Valentine, and I am happy to say that the biggest Winx Club fan project to date is now available for free at magicalmemorieszine.com. It is 354 pages of pure nostalgic Winx fun, and I hope that you check it out. We had a blast making it. It took us over a year to plan it and gather fan stories from across the world, your stories from across the world of growing up with Winx Club over the past 20 years. And it's just been such an honor to get to create this love letter for the fandom. So thanks for being a Winx fan, and we hope that you enjoy the Magical Memories fanzine. Download it now for free on magicalmemorieszine.com. And now back to the show.
in the interior Althea courtyard, Stella finds Beatrix drowning in tedious calls and offers to help as well as a drink as a gesture. Beatrix, initially resistant, opens up about missing her power and past influence. They bond over shared frustrations with their current situations before Stella asks B for a favor and if she still has access to Rosalind's office.
Mm-hmm.
Such an important scene because we know Stella is testing to see if Beatrix is trustworthy, but
Mm-hmm.
she's also confiding, like, honestly in Beatrix. Like,
Yeah.
that's because they really do kind of want to become friends. And I think that's part of the tragedy of how that whole situation unfolds too, is that, like, this is a dynamic that's happening outside of the Wing Suite. And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to
But
end well.
also, right. But also, Beatrix, I feel like she's so closed off to people just because of like her life. Because
Yeah.
even like when, I mean, she was right, but even when Stella comes up and she's like, "What do you want?" Like, you want something, like, what is
Hmm.
it? You know, and Stella's like, "No, no, I'm just like checking on you and like here's a tea." And then when Stella does, like come out with it, like, I actually do need a favor. Like, you can see it on Beatrix's face. She's like, just like what I fucking thought. Like, this is like you
Yeah.
you didn't want to just hang out with me. Like, even if like you did a little, but like I
It
don't
goes
know,
well, there's
it
nuance
does.
to it, and I think that yeah, part of how the chaos
Yeah.
kind of unravels later on too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, I still heartbreaking. We will gosh, yeah. But that's for next episode. Rosalind casts a mysterious spell at the stone circle, insisting it's necessary to trap any potential mole, as in like somewhat like a spy for the blood witches hiding at Althea. She argues with Silva, who worries that what she's doing will alarm the students, and I mean, yeah. She then sends Silva to question Sky about the break-in, hinting at using strong magic if she catches him next.
So,
Before he
like,
does? Yeah.
yeah, I guess you could say before he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way she basically threatens to hurt Sky is, like, such evil behavior. Like, this is like a one-up kinda moment from what went down in the
Mhm.
office earlier. This is her asserting her power, and I think that's just diabolical like Rosalind is. So,
Yeah.
um
But also, I mean, the parallels to season 3 throughout this season, like, Rosalind is strengthening the barrier, like, when they introduced the barrier in season 3 of the original series. It's so good, and, like, I don't know, just to reinforcing, like I said earlier, the stone circle is the thing that charges fairy magic. I'm sure the stone circle is just a part of where the veil of their magic comes from is stronger. I'm sure there's a bunch of places like that in the other world, but yeah, I think that that's just such a cool detail that they expanded upon post season 1.
yeah, definitely. In Althea's upper middle corridor, Sky approaches Beatrix to retrieve a book for Bloom. Beatrix throws the book at him, filled with anger. She blames him for her father's death, refusing to accept Sky's justification of self defense. The scene ends with a tense atmosphere and unresolved conflict, and we see Rosalind channeling magic through the stone circle. Bloom and Sky then share a farewell kiss before parting ways as she heads to the first world. After she walks through the barrier, Rosalind seals it. Sky
Oh,
hesitates, but Bloom misreads his concern. She playfully pokes fun, but also confronts his lack of communication regarding his problems before pausing and switching to reassure Sky that she's stronger than Sebastian and she's got control of the situation.
yeah.
Um, yeah, like, going back to the Beatrix versus Sky moment in the upper corridor, like, I get it, like, she's obviously upset about how things went down because maybe she would've found another solution, but
Mhm.
she wasn't there, she wasn't,
Mhm.
like, present. I mean, she was there, she was taken away because she was knocked out, but also we kinda know that there's a little bit more to it too with how she was, involved
Mm.
with Sebastian a little bit. So, like,
Yeah.
it seems maybe she has a guilty
Mhm.
conscience, and she's kinda, like, blaming it all on Sky because he did the actual
Oh.
action, but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I did hate, though, the way this guy was like, "He was my dad." It's like, by
I mean,
blood, baby.
yes, but, like, at the same time, 2 things can be true, totally
Yeah.
feel that. But
Oh
I think
my
that's also part
gosh.
of their disconnect is that there's
Mhm.
clearly, like
Yeah, it didn't even, like, really dawn on me until, like, this moment that, like, damn, like, they're kinda step siblings. Like,
yeah,
that's
like, not brother,
crazy.
not sister dynamic kinda going on, and on top of that, they
Yes.
argue like it, so
Ye
yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. Crazy. Well.
Um Time and place though regarding the like whole thing about Bloom being the solution or like just like all of that reassurance in that moment, like he just has like a lot of attachment issues going on, and it's clear that he didn't want her to go because of that, but like as he said previously in episode 1 of this season, he knows he can't stop Bloom because she'll go and do her own thing anyways,
Yeah.
and that's
Oh.
exactly kind of what happens here, and so, yeah, but the reason I don't talk about my problems is because you're the solution, like, can we talk about that? Because oh, no.
Part of me, let's break this down a little bit because when I've watched this episode now probably like 6 or 7 times, and this time though, it hit me different when he said this because
Oh,
it
really?
felt, yeah, it felt a little like, "I don't do this because you're the solution." Like, he when he started to say it, it sounded very defensive, and it sounded very sarcastic. But then when he said, "You're the because you're the solution," it kinda resolved as, like, kind, like, kindness, but, like, I don't know, like, was it supposed to be a jab? Was it supposed to
Was
be,
it
like,
literal? Yeah, like
reassuring? Like, was
mhm.
it, like, "I don't talk about my problems because you have everything because, like, you have everything figured out," or, like, you think that you are the solution to everything. Like, you don't have to be the solution to everything.
Oh, I took it as more of a like, I see you as the comfort to, like, everything that's going on in my life, and so,
Right.
like,
Right.
it's more of, like, a comfort moment, but at the same time, even saying that is still pretty unhealthy because you still have to process the actual gravity of the situation to say, like,
Right.
"You make me feel
Ugh.
so good as a person that, like, I don't have to worry about my problems."
That's what Musa
So
tried to do with Sam, and that clearly didn't
mhm.
work out.
Yeah,
Clearly.
so that's how I took it, and I just got, like, the ick
No.
from it because it's like, "Oh, no, I'm no,
Yes.
you still on that. You still gotta get that get all that figured out."
Toxicity.
So,
Oh my god, the
yeah.
toxicity. It's just it's funny. Yeah, it's funny because I mean, that's absolutely, like, the takeaway from it. I was just probably just overanalyzing by, like, the, 100th time I watched it, so it's
Yeah.
like, "Wait a minute." Anyway, oh my gosh. So while helping Riven spar, Riven senses a bit of pent up tension and frustration within Musa. Tara confronts her, leading to a back and forth frustrations between the two. In the heat of the moment, Musa walking away during this heated argument, Tara loses control of her magic and accidentally sinks Musa's calves into the actual hard ground. When Riven chimes, explains she didn't do it on purpose and that something is wrong with her magic. The girls discover then that the magic and emotions are faulty due to part of it being still stuck in the convergence crystal. So suggests channeling it back into the crystal to fix it, explaining earlier mishap. When a surprise visit from Gray disrupts their planning, but a magical kiss with the convergence crystal in hand sparks an accidental solution. They have to discharge their magic into the crystal. With a working solution, they channel back to normal, but when Stella says it's all sorted out, Aisha explains that they still have to call Bloom to come and discharge her magic before she does something stupid.
These 2 moments were, like, really good, like, especially on the
Mhm.
track, that Tara versus Musa kinda moment. I love it. I love it so much.
Mhm.
The vibe that just, like, Tara was just like, "I'm not gonna let this go."
Mm.
I think that that's nice to see her move into a more, like, authoritative, like, she's being assertive here in this moment, like, she wants to understand,
Yeah.
like, what's going on, like, they just had this big thing happen in the suite where she was super vulnerable, and then all of a sudden, now Musa wants to kinda, like, shut her out again. I'd be kind of upset too, so, like,
Yeah. No,
I
that's so
see
valid.
yeah, I see why she was so, like, persistent here. So, also, like, Riven kinda being surprised at what she did, X is very out of character for Tara.
Yes, because he knows Tara really well, like, they were friends, like, his
Mhm.
freshman year of high school. So, like, that was very funny that, like, he was like, "Tara, what the hell?"
Yeah.
It's like, "What? Where the
And
hell you
also
been,
she
Loca?" No, I'm kidding.
yeah. And also she didn't do it on purpose because like, her emotions are
No.
not stable either, so, like, this whole dynamic, this whole blow up of emotion is like, again, it may not have happened like this had they not discharged their magic into the crystals. Like, if that didn't
Right.
have an emotional effect on them, like, I don't know if she would have still
Mhm.
been as assertive here.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
Wow.
leads into my next point because Aisha's attitude adjustment upon opening the
Mm.
door when she realized it was, like, gray on the other side is a
Mhm.
clear example of the convergence crystal also affecting their emotional states.
Wow.
Um, yeah, just, like, the fairies in this universe, like, channeled, like, their magic constantly, like and I think what's interesting here is that during this romantic kiss moment, we also see it, and we also saw it in the previous episode with Gray and Aisha when she was channeling her magic. I don't know if it's, like, an
Mhm.
intentional thing, if it's an unintentional thing, but I just feel like it's, like, a really good way to kind of visually symbolize, like, this, like, little budding romance between these 2.
Yeah. Aw. I also wonder, well, I mean, I don't wonder, and I think that we talk about it in the next episode, but, like, what Gray was coming to talk to Aisha about.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
he tried to, like, take her away from the group. Was he coming to, confess that he was actually You know,
working for the
confess what he
other
had to confess.
side. Yeah, yeah. Like, trying to, like, get her to, like, leave Alfie and run away with him,
Mhm.
forget all this Blood Witch fairy stuff, just be together. Ugh, that would've been cute, but
Yeah,
I
for
don't know,
sure.
we'll have to wait until next episode.
Bloom's magic and emotions are also super unstable right now. It's like you can
Mhm.
see a few times throughout this episode as we get deeper into it. Right before she enters the diner in our next scene, we actually see that she can't control her anger as she like channels magic merely at the sight of Sebastian.
And and this just, like, reminded me in the convergence ceremony and, like, their original, like, plan, like, wasn't working, and Aisha was like, "We might need something stronger." And at first, Bloom was like, "The dragon flame?" Like, kinda hesitant, like, "Ooh, I don't know, like, that's a lot." And Aisha was like, "Well, if you can control it." Like, kind of, like, egging her on a little bit in a very, like, characteristic, like, way for Aisha of, like, "If you think you can control it." Like, bitch, like,
Yeah,
I'm the fairy of
yeah.
the dragon flame, and Bloom was like, "I can control it." Like, literally, like, that exact, like, cold shoulder, like, "Who are you? I can control it." You know? And so, the fact that
I saw it as
now
like a
she's
confidence thing too. Like she's like, I can
Mhm.
control it. Like I got this. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's
Absolutely.
very, very for kids Bloom though. She's very like front
Mhm.
center. But here's like a little bit more like if she was a little bit more relaxed. So
Mhm.
yeah, I loved it though. I
Mhm.
thought it was a nice touch to this whole scenario. So
Right, but, like, it's funny because, like, her reassuring Aisha that she can control it, and then the last words in this episode.
yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
so
we'll get there, okay.
it's like an unexpected turn of like, yeah, maybe
Mhm.
if this had not happened the way it did and your magic wasn't destabilized, maybe you could have controlled it, but you had
Well
no idea that it was gonna like unfold like this.
Well,
So
here's the thing. So the dragon flame, I think the dragon flame in Fate is something that Bloom has to summon. It's not just her regular fire fairy powers. She has to summon the dragon flame. So if it wasn't for Aisha like egging her on of like we need something stronger, like Bloom might not have had like the literal dragon flame like as a live wire like
yeah, she would have
during
just
this
been
next
using
scene.
regular
Just
magic.
regular. Yeah.
Which is also kinda like in Winx Club too, like, she brings out the dragon flame in the moments that she really needs it, later
Anyway. Oh,
seasons, but yeah, she's like a fire fairy, but she's got this, like, kinda, like, secondary element to her
yeah.
power, and that's kinda how
Mhm.
it feels here, like,
Yeah, yeah, it
so,
does. Crazy.
yeah. Bloom meets Sebastian at a kitschy diner in the first world. Despite initial distrust, she reveals that she needs his help to restore Musa's magic and slides him the Blood Witch book in exchange for information. Sebastian reveals two options. He can have a scraper return it, or Bloom can kill him, releasing magic for everyone. Bloom suspects this information is a trap, but he insists that it's part of the deal. Before leaving, Aisha calls Bloom with the news that the Convergence messed up their magic and Bloom needs to
Mhm.
return to discharge it. Ignoring the warning, Bloom decides to confront Sebastian further.
That's a mean yeah, I can say it after whatever you've got to share, but, like
Um, okay, so walking into the diner, like before
mhm.
all this goes down, we do see that there is a mind your step window decal on the outside of it. So you can kind of see that they, added a little bit of a visual cue here for
Mhm,
this, which
mm.
goes on to the fact that not only are they sitting at table number 13 because of Sebastian being diabolical and sick in the head, and he knows that 13 is
Mhm.
a number that is associated with that kind of evil, darkness, death type of vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
The diner itself, though, has a white horse painting on the wall, which we know that the white horse was symbolic from the second episode. Was it the
Yeah.
first? I already
It
forgot.
was
Like,
it was the second one.
okay, we know that the white horse is symbolic because the second episode with Bloom and Sky, obviously riding on horseback, and there's like that
Mhm.
one white
The
horse there.
singular white horse.
Yeah. But here, like, it's also kind of symbolic too because the Winx Club comics do have a cafe slash pub restaurant type of thing called the White Horse. And so I'm wondering,
Yes.
like, with all of this being put here, because like I looked at the original images for this diner that they filmed in, and all of the
Mhm.
stuff that was added here was added by the like Fate crew.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there's like any tie in there, like if Rainbow and Netflix wanted to like maybe nod to that, or maybe it's just a
Yeah.
grand coincidence, a
Either
single
way, I think it's fabulous. I love that.
right that like happens. Things just kind of
Oh,
fall into place, and I think that that's one of those things that may have just fallen right into place. So
what some may call it
um
fate. I don't know.
earlier, Bloom promised Aisha she'd come home after like figuring out how to get Musa's magic back. But then, of course, once the magic was destabilized and she's
Ugh,
like, emotionally not sound either, um, I don't think there's anything Aisha could have said to convince Bloom to return home. That's like the
that's
fate aspect where it's just out of her control.
yeah. I also and again, this is probably me, like, reading way too much into it, like, I wondered if Aisha telling her that, "Hey, like, your magic's destabilized," like, I wonder if she also was thinking like, "Oh, I'm more powerful right now? Like, I can
Yeah.
take him on?"
Oh,
Oh.
kind of goes into the dark side moment of this season where we see yeah, like, dark side like the song, but also like the
Mhm.
we know that that's what this season's about, like exploring Bloom's like dark side in the literal sense too.
Dark
Not
Bloom.
yeah, Dark Bloom, but this is like a more realistic grounded take
Yeah.
on it. So,
And just how, like, how easily a character that's good can toy with, like, the dark side of
right?
themselves.
Wines with magic because this scenario could not take place if the magic part of Winx and Fate was not an element. And I feel like
Mhm.
all of the best Winx stories tie into magic like that. Like they make it
Yeah.
so magic is like not just like there as like an aspect of the story, like, oh, we, shoot magic out of our hands and things like that, but
Yeah.
like it ties into not only the emotional dynamics, but also the plot in a way where it literally could not happen without it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is absolutely a spoiler if you've never seen Fate, but, like, what have you been doing? How are you this far into our rewatch?
Yeah.
But, like, uh, Fate Valtor, Sebastian Valtor, he is a phenomenal real life version of Valtor. He is so convincing with the way that he toys with Bloom, the way that they interact, like, it's just so Valtor. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's also fake Avalon too. Like, he was really good
Yes!
at it's incredible how they were able to humanize these characters like this.
Absolutely. I know that everybody wanted, like, the dark
David Bowie,
academia,
yeah,
like, David
like
Bowie. Yes, exactly, but so sorry. This is what we got, but, like, he still did a phenomenal job.
yeah, for sure.
You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast.
At the Bastion, Sky and Silva conclude that he passed out drunk in the East Wing before discussing Sky's emotional state after killing Andreas. Silva reveals he dealt with a similar trauma through heavy drinking, but eventually it passed. Sky struggles with the memory and lost future he envisioned with Andreas.
Mm, yeah.
Silva then advises Sky to accept that the unpredictable nature of life is part of being a soldier and that he has to find strength in becoming unshakable in the face of
Mhm.
uncertainty. Sky tells Silva that while that may work for him, he's not sure that's a life he wants to live before walking off.
Honestly, totally fair.
That's like being told that like sometimes you just gotta like roll with the punches. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, sometimes you do, but also the grand theme of fate and like throughout Winx is just like that you do get to craft your own
Mm,
destinies that shape their destinies in ways, but it's
yeah.
also it's not, so all this ties into the grand theme of fate, hinting at like the larger theme found within any Winx story where the characters kind of like struggle against, accept, change, or don't even acknowledge and just like flow with the predetermined forces that shape their
Mhm.
destinies. It's not about achieving flawlessness, but about living authentically in the present, in the moment, you know?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
by actively pursuing their truest selves, these characters like definitely weave through their
Mm.
doubting that fate is like not like a force that's set in stone, but rather is like woven through the threads of their choices. And I feel like this next scene
Ooh.
really leads right into this topic too.
Just got chills. Oh my gosh. Yes, though. Dang, that is
Yeah,
such a good word, honestly. Damn.
thank you. Like, I feel like a lot of us, when we think about Winx, we kind of forget that there is this overarching theme of fate that like brings these stories together. And what I've noticed
Yeah.
in this show specifically is that every action by every character leads to something that has like pretty big consequences, which is kind of like in real life too. But like when the characters do really good things in the show, good things
Yeah.
happen, but they also learn new information about other things going on.
Mhm.
The greatest example I can think of is maybe season one when Luna shows up to the school and they're looking to figure out who killed Callum.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you think about like there was this moment where Tara asks Musa to check on Stella, like, what's Stella thinking right now? And then when she
Mhm.
does that, she's not only getting the vibe off of Stella, but she's able to catch the like riff of a vibe from Farah that like, oh, there's
Mhm.
something else going on here. And then that kind of like unfolds into the, the rest of the antics that happen from
Yeah.
that. But it's just kind of like that saying of like if you live authentically to being yourself and you do your best to be your best, like things will unfold the
Mhm.
way that they're supposed to and you never know like
Yeah.
where that will lead you. So
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. It's because it's so true, and that is something that, dare I say, is a part of the Winx DNA. Like, literally
yeah,
talking with a genie, that is literally what he described exactly what you just said, like, becoming who you're supposed to be and helping shape that. That's perfectly the Winx DNA of any Winx story, so I love that.
definitely. Yeah,
Amazing.
he did a great job thinking that out. Like I think that's why I love Winx so much is that like it's just there's so much crafted into it where I'm just like that's so real though. Like I want to live my life like that, like just true to who I want to
Yeah.
be. And, I feel
Mhm.
like that's, yeah, very Winx. So,
It's very Winx. I love it. Ugh. So, back with Musa. And Ribbon stuck in the ground. Musa's still stuck in the ground on the running track. Taunts roll off Musa like water thanks to her missing magic from the runners by. And Riven, knowing her secret because he saw her give up her powers to the Scrapers when he went to rescue her, pushes for her to be honest with Tara and the others. Musa, of course, fears judgment, but Riven reminds her that her life is her life and she can live it how she wants, regardless of what others think. And that's very eloquently put compared to what he actually says. And then about that time, Tara arrives and they rush off as a crisis with Bloom starts to overtake everything else as it does. I mean, just the fact that like it's interesting to me to see like Riven be like very like, yeah, Misa, like be who you are, be this, be that. And then next episode, he's like, no, you can't be a specialist.
yeah, like,
Like it's just it's like whiplash. Like what's happening?
yeah.
Oh, so funny.
So I think this is like a really good moment for like Riven and Musa, like kind of
Mhm.
talking more one on one. Like I feel like this is a great moment for
This
that.
is what the
So,
Revusa fans wanted. This is why
mhm.
we shoved Sam out like episode 2. Like it wasn't even. It was like episode 3.
yeah,
Oh my god, it was episode 3. Like they had to just write him off so that we could get to this shit. And like I mean, it's good. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong.
I like the way
As a
that it's been written in here. So,
Yes, as a former Revusa shipper, like, absolutely. Of course, I was a 9 and I didn't understand the concept of, like, emotional intelligence in a relationship, but,
yeah. It's the
anyway,
bad boy aesthetic. I feel like Riven's
so
always
true.
had that charm, so
So true. Amazing. So the girls rush off to Rosalind's office, informing her that Bloom is volatile in the first world with Sebastian and are scared that she might unalive him. Rosalind, who is just, unbothered, could not be bothered by this information, insinuates that she might want Bloom to unalive Sebastian, as she says the other world would be a better place. God damn. When Aisha calls out that Rosalind wants Bloom to lose control, Rosalind rhetorically deflects by asking the girls if they really thought Beatrix could take something from her office without her knowing. So Rosalind further suggests that Bloom's potential loss of control might solve their Sebastian problem. Aisha emphasizes Bloom isn't a killer, but Rosalind leaves them with a chilling. We'll see about that.
Oh,
Miss
the
Ma'am.
evil. Like this, she is the complete opposite of Farah Dowling. Like she is
Mm,
like a total, like she's just a diabolical
Weotch.
genius. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. But
That's crazy.
yeah.
And the "we'll see about that" is like, "Yes, ma'am, you fucking will."
Oh my gosh. It's too good. So good.
Oh.
Like when you think about it, like, wow, Lily, you ate that up because that is so true. It's a sight to die
That's
for.
genius.
Like, oh. Like,
Oh, this is so unhinged. I love it. Oh my gosh.
that's so good though. Like I love how we like find these little things on this
Yes.
podcast, like the broom bloom. I still think about that one. Like Bloom prompts Sebastian to take a walk behind the with games as her magic surges unintentionally. Sebastian calls out her true motives for showing up, seeking answers about her origins. He offers a deal. He wants the dragon flame, and in exchange, he'll give Bloom information about her origins while also returning all the stolen magic, claiming he won't need it anymore. Sebastian says that he doesn't crave a war like Rosalind, who apparently shares a history with his father, both zealots obsessed with an ancient war. He then drops a bombshell revelation that his dad found Bloom and brought her home to Asterdell, which unfortunately led to the destruction of every single family there.
Mhm,
When Bloom asks him to clarify what her being found even means, he demands the
mhm,
dragon flame for the answer, which, after hesitating, Bloom says is never going to happen. As a parting shot, Sebastian reveals Dowling's death was at the hands of Rosalind,
mm,
leaving Bloom furious. Something I think when they first met up in the cafe, when
yeah,
she sees that he can actually read the Blood Witch text, she deduces that he's from Asterdell, which then he
mhm,
also kind of confirms that the book belonged to his father, who was obsessed with the dragon flame. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, like I'm not sure how much of what Sebastian here is saying is true, but a lot of what he is saying like does kind of sound like it could be accurate knowing who Rosalind
yeah,
is and what she did over in Astrodel, but also yeah, like the Dominion War. We obviously know that that's something that took
mhm.
place and this is probably part of that. But Ancient War makes me think even longer.
Even
Like
longer before. Yeah, because his
yeah,
dad found Bloom, found her where? We'll learn in a few episodes, but, like, well, in
yeah.
the next
So
episode.
yeah, it's like oh yeah, we do learn it in the next episode. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, here I feel like that's like I also kind of forgot that the Dominion War did not take place 16 years ago in this one.
Yeah, well, yeah, in this one because
Yeah,
they fixed that entirely,
yeah,
and I'll forever love Fate for fixing that timeline issue
yeah,
because
thank God
love.
they fixed that. But yeah, we essentially learn a little bit of what Sebastian is, kind of revealing about this history. We don't know how much of it's true, but a lot of it does sound like it could
Mhm,
be true, especially with what we know about Rosalind. So I think that yeah, it's a really interesting scene, and especially the end, like when we hear the end of this conversation, Bloom like lights up and channels her magic, and we hear the fury and the fiery sound effect of
mhm.
what's going on internally with her, which is like the dragon flame is like pissed.
Oh, yeah, it's just like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
it's
it's
ready to
ready."
come
It's like,
out.
"Let me
So
at him." But, like, she didn't get that way towards Sebastian. I think that's important to note. Like, Sebastian
yeah,
hasn't given her a reason yet to be that way towards him, besides, taking Musa's magic, but, like, she's just a pawn in, like, a grander, scheme of his. Like, it wasn't even anything personal to Musa that he took her power. You know, like she was just another fairy with power. For Bloom, though, lighting up at the now like information that she has that Rosalind killed Dowling. Oof. That anger is all for Rosalind. It's all for her.
Yeah.
None of it is for Sebastian. Oof.
And I feel like the way he delivered it too is like, you can't imagine that happening, like,
No.
like yeah, like
Yes.
he really sold it, like, it's like,
Mhm.
kind of like he was, like, lighting a fuse.
Good. He's good.
So, yeah.
Ooh, but, like, while all
Yeah.
this is happening, we get a shot of Gray approaching Luke. We know Luke is Dane, Fate Dane's, like, boo thing, who is on guard duty at the Bastion, asking if he knows how to get past the barrier that Rosalind sealed. Luke says he doesn't know anything, and when Gray walks off, Luke calls Silva. And then it is shown to the audience that Luke is actually using his Blood Witch powers to manipulate Luke's response to calling Silva just to confirm instructions before making Luke pass out. What the fuck?
Aisha is usually right, like, I feel like here is, like, where that goes wrong because it's very clear that, oh my gosh,
Mm.
Gray's a blood witch, like,
Mhm. Mhm.
oh, and the turnaround here, we have to talk about that. That shot of, like, revealing that,
Oof.
so good,
It
like,
was so good.
I hope that for the Winx Club reboot, because it's all in 3D and they can do camera blurs and stuff like this,
Mhm.
they kind of do more of this suspense, like, type of cliffhanger, reveal type moments, like the big reveal plot twists like this. I feel like
Mhm.
that would be incredible to see.
And you saying that made me recall there are instances in the original Winx series where they try and do some of that cinematic camera work. Not like, past season 3, but like really truly like what you said earlier about Eugenio saying how Winx Club, the original seasons were based on like teen dramas like this. Like it's so apparent in like what they were trying to do in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
but were probably limited. So like, oh my
And
god,
now
but
they
the
can, like, in a
3D?
way, kind of pull a little bit,
Yes.
and they have
Ah,
their own framework to work from if they do pull
yes.
anything in from Fate, which I think would be the filming style, so
Mhm. That's
but
so
they can do so much
exciting.
more. Yeah, it's really
Yes.
exciting when you think about it,
Oh,
like,
wow.
so,
Ah, so cool.
yeah. So Stella confronts Beatrix about snitching on their plan. In response, Beatrix defends herself, coldly stating that she needs to play Rosalind's game to avoid being kicked out. She tearfully tells Stella that she has nothing and nobody, and to not be surprised when she does whatever it takes to survive from here on out. Stella then gets a call from Aisha, revealing the shocking truth that Rosalind killed Dowling. Behind the Althea barrier in the forest, Aisha describes Bloom as agitated and explains their plan to help her discharge her magic with the convergence crystal. But Rosalind has intervened, arranging to meet Bloom by the portal.
Mhm.
So,
I really, really think that if they were just nice to Beatrix, none of this would have probably freaking happened. Like, all she needed was literally friends. And she was awful in the first season. Like, I hated her in the first season. I know you were supposed to, how they wrote her character, but I really didn't care for her character. And they really made me fall in love and feel terrible for her in this season. They did it so well. I really do think that if they had just let her hang out while they were getting ready for the dance, or if they would have let her hang out and been in on the plot about Musa's magic. Beatrix is really smart. She probably could have told them that's a terrible idea. It probably would have erased a lot of these problems that they created. So,
and
yeah.
that's like such a Winx thing, like the communication, the lack of openness, the when people are not like when people are off-putting to each other, like things like this happen, and I feel like this
Yeah.
is a great example of that, and it's just very sad, like, but
Yeah.
also Beatrix is so mean in ways, like when she showed up to Bloom's room, and like
Oh,
the
yeah.
way enters the space is just like so built upon the way she was raised in hiding, and it's just
Yeah.
so guarded and protective, and so it kind of goes both ways in a way, but like
It
Yeah,
does.
maybe that's all she needed. Maybe she just needed, like, a big group welcoming from everybody in
A
order
group
to
hug. Yes,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
she needed. Poor baby girl.
So
Ugh.
I've always said that, like, what I thought she was doing was right, even though she may have had some bad information from Rosalind, but she was 100% right that they were hiding a whole set of, like, war atrocities that happened at Astrodel.
Mhm,
Even with how she responded to Farah in the 5th episode of the 1st season, I
mhm.
still feel like she still was sticking true to what she knew, even if she didn't know that Rosalind was after something completely different. So,
Yeah, woof. I know, we forget
yeah,
that
it's
about
wild to
Farrah
think
too.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, we were out here like, "Oh, I miss Farrah," but, like, ooh, she was also kinda shady,
Mhm.
hiding war
So was
atrocities, that's
Farragonda.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, no, so true
Yeah.
though. Farrah
Like
Gonda was she be out here knowing stuff and not telling
mhm.
nobody.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably something we're gonna see in the reboot too, like, maybe a little bit more mystery to the headmistresses and headmasters, like,
Yeah,
maybe they're I feel like they'll probably bring over some sort of dynamic, I don't know, I
mhm,
guess we'll see, but I
yeah,
feel like it would be a wasted opportunity not to.
yeah,
So
absolutely. But the scene that we've been building up to this whole
oh, yep, the
episode.
big moment.
Later, Rosalind finds Bloom at the graveyard, just as she expected as Bloom was coming back from the first world. Bloom tells Rosalind that she managed to make Sebastian believe that she could turn on Rosalind. However, Bloom tries to bluff her way through the conversation. Yet Rosalind senses that something is wrong. Bloom then asks Rosalind if this is the spot where she killed Dowling, and she confesses to the murder. Just there, the two of them by themselves in the graveyard. No one else to hear this. After being confronted with her crime, Rosalind tries to literally unalive Bloom, like freeze her to death. When Bloom's powers, being much stronger than anyone thought, just burns Rosalind to a little crispy death. When her friends arrive on the scene, because there was a huge explosion, and supposedly, I guess since Rosalind's power was technically like powering the barrier, like I guess that is now null and void because she's gone. So her friends like come through and find her in the graveyard with this burnt pile of Rosalind. And Bloom just says simply, I lost control. End
Yep,
credits, end scene, it's dark music playing, chills.
so good.
Absolute chills.
This everything about this moment is incredible. Number 1, the you like you said earlier, the, "Oh, I've got control of the situation," or, Aisha had, like,
Mhm,
given that warning to Bloom. She was so confident that she had it, and now she's on the opposite. That's one
mhm.
element. Then on top of that, like, the fact that at the very end of this, when she says, "I lost control," we hear those chimes in the background that we
Ooh.
heard in the first episode when they were all sitting outside under the tree. We hear the same noises about like, when they were talking about Rosalind and Aisha's like, "Well, for the record, I thought releasing Rosalind was, like, a bad idea." We see a moment where Bloom thinks about it, and we hear these noises in the background, which are, on the background music score for this show. And then I've kind of said that it's already kind of like a character itself, like the music, and the character of the music is like now telling us, "Oh, here we are again." Like,
Yo,
yeah.
that's
So
eerie, that's
it is, but
crazy. I have
it's
chills.
so well thought out and crafted, and I feel like it's one of those things that, like, it took me a few watches to figure it out, but,
Mhm.
like, that's part of the beauty of this show is that it's so designed to be rewatched multiple
Yeah.
times. Like,
Yeah.
and that's, like, something I think Rainbow must have taken into account considering how many years a lot of us have rewatched the Winx Club, like
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That's so true. Man, and it's just so I loved and pointing out that, like, Rosalind's power is probably connected to the barrier was one thing, but, like, I mean, Bloom's blast, like, sent a surge of energy, like, all across, like, Alphea's campus, like, in, like, the
Mhm.
woods surrounding it, and
And it's
Sky
Rosalind's
realizing.
power too,
Yeah,
like, if
oh,
you think about it,
totally.
yeah,
Yes,
so
because, like,
the
fairies emit an energy when they leave their corporal bodies.
mhm.
So,
And
Sky realizing.
We saw that Bloom was, like, orange with her magic, and then Rosalind's
Mhm,
very blue coated, like,
mhm.
so, like, that big explosion is she did
Yeah.
that, like, she took her out, like, that's
Yes, and but for me, it was Sky knowing exactly what had happened, but, like,
yeah.
without even having to see it, him knowing, like, "Bloom, what have you done?"
And the dark shadow on his face,
Ugh,
like, the way that they filmed it, I'm just like, "Oh, that's so good." Like, he
yeah.
looked it was perfect. It was just
It was
it
so
looked
good.
how it shoulda looked, and I think another thing to add too is that when they all go back to see Bloom, Stella can't go through the barrier. The barrier's still up, it's just not she's
It's
still
just
not
not as
able to leave
strong.
because of the gem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, we also didn't mention this is way, way past it, but, like, when Bloom and Sky had that moment at the barrier before she went to go see Sebastian in the first world, it was very reminiscent because they did the whole, like, hand touch his hand in the barrier thing. Like, it was very reminiscent of, like, the barrier that Aisha put up to protect Bloom while they were trying to escape Heraklion after Valtor got control of Sky.
Yeah.
That was really cool, but, like, yeah, I'll cut that into that part probably. But so it's just it's just really, really crazy. I mean, like, people don't just, like, die in Winx Club like this. Like,
I feel like that's,
this
like,
is
definitely
next
more of, like, a
level.
comics thing, like, we see a little bit more of that. I haven't gotten that far into the later comics that do that,
Yeah.
but there are some pretty moments, even running into, like, season 4 with, like, Roxy and some of the stuff that goes
Mhm.
on and their side stories. It's
Oh,
very
wow.
sad, like, yeah, we see some, like, direct, like, death in nature and, like, with
Oh, wow.
I think that there's something involving Aisha and, like, a wizard and maybe something regarding Naboo, I don't know because I don't have this one.
We literally do have death in Winx Club. Literally,
Oh, yeah, well,
Naboo
that too,
died.
yeah. No, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But we haven't seen anybody get totally cooked
No.
like, this is a whole new level, so and, it's funny too because if you think about the complete opposite of where Bloom was, like, with being
Mhm.
frozen by Rosalind's ice magic, look at the other side of this, like,
Yeah.
she's now just, like, straight up cooked, like, and I think
Yeah.
that that's pretty incredible. Also, it goes back to that theory that, like, in season 1, a lot of people thought Rosalind was, like, an icy equivalent because of the ponytail
Mhm, mhm.
and the, like, hairpiece that she had in, and so I think, the fact that, like, earlier in the season when she pried information out of Riven and Andreas and I don't remember if Dane was in the room for that one, but the we saw like the icy breath come out of them as she
Oh,
was like forcing them to give up information. And
yes.
here we kind of see that ice power come back.
Mm.
And then we also find out that she's really on a team of her own and that like she
Oh,
had a whole
for
plan
sure. Uh-huh,
from the
she was like,
start.
I can still channel the dragon fire from you if you're in stasis." And it's like, "Golly,
Yeah, she
lady."
had backup plans, like
She
plan B is
did.
oh,
She had
so
planned probably C, D, E, and F, like, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Maniacal, absolutely
for
maniacal.
real. I do want to say that not only do we see our hero actually kill somebody, but as the viewers, we're the only ones who see our hero kill somebody. And
Yeah.
that kind of plays into the harsh realities of episode 6 and 7 and like the fact that poor Bloom has to like not only live with this for the rest of her life, but now she has to like defend herself
Mhm,
against what
mhm.
actually happened in this graveyard. So
Yeah.
how much of it was self-defense, like, how much of it
Mhm.
was wanting to avenge Miss Dowling, wanting to hurt
Yeah.
Rosalind, to give in to completely losing control, and, like, how much of it was her and how much can she be blamed for or, like,
Yeah.
blame her like, because she has to live with it no matter what, so,
Mhm.
like, she's kinda left grappling with this horrifying reality that she can't rewind, and even she doesn't know the full
Mhm.
reality of the
Yeah,
situation.
that's true.
So,
Wow.
um I think like this defining moment with the added chaos, of course, of the convergence crystal will probably forever haunt her as we like I mean, we learn this
Continue
later on
on.
like that, but
I just got a revelation, but continue.
okay, there's no chance to see if a different outcome was possible, which again ties into the theme of fate that like you have to live with the choices you make. And
Mhm.
here she's killed someone, she's left with this agonizing uncertainty in her choices. And I think it easily goes down as one of the deepest and darkest moments in the Winx franchise, if not, I would even say maybe up there with like the
Naboo.
darkest, the deepest. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
because it's
and, like,
so
even
tragic.
but also, you know who else just had to kill a person out of self-defense?
Oh,
Literally
I
her
wonder.
boyfriend.
The yeah, the sky to the
They
flower,
now
you know? Like,
yes, no, for real, they
yeah,
literally have this, like, trauma bond with each other, which is so sad that they
a
have that.
faded trauma bond too. And
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
I feel like that ties into their coding too, is like
mhm.
Sky being like the sun and Bloom, being a
Oh,
flower who opens up to her magic. Like,
wow.
yeah, it's just oh, it's such
Gosh.
an amazing thing to think about. Like when you think about how much thought really went into this over not only the years of like Winx Club, but also with how they
Mhm.
crafted it for this series. I'm not sure that like when I was watching Fate for the first time that I expected it to go as deep as it did, but I also kind of knew
Yeah,
in the back of my mind that it was a potential. And
for
yeah.
sure. Well, that does it for this season 2 rewatch episode, but we do like to end these episodes with recapping our favorite Fate Forever moments. So these are moments that are either like our favorites or moments that really remind us of like the core like Winx aesthetic, you know? So what would yours be, Dane?
Like a Fate Forever moment that reminds me of the original Winx Club is definitely in the suite. Like all
Oh
girls,
yeah.
that group hug is very, very Winx Club in multiple fashions. But also, I think my favorite moment honestly has to be like the conflict with Rosalind at the very end, like the big explosion moment. Like I feel like it's just so telling to like when people are like, "Oh, you like Winx Club? Like, what's Winx Club?" And I'm like, "Well, there's a lot to it. Like, it's a
Yeah.
very it's not something you can just take at face value, like a
Mhm.
cute glittery fairy show. Like, no,
Very
there's
show.
there's some punch to it. So
Yeah, we got
yeah,
layers for
but I
sure.
feel like the people who are willing to watch it and look past that,
Mhm.
like maybe
Yeah.
the first impression of it, and really kind of go beyond, like, maybe judging
Mhm.
a book by its cover and then watching it,
Mhm.
they are, like, heavily rewarded with this amazing story, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah,
that's so
definitely
fair.
Bloom killing Rosalind.
You're like, "I am here for the Rosalind barbecue." Like, "Where's my
Yeah.
plate?"
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I think for me, that convergence ceremony and also Tara's coming out, like, that was just so beautiful. It was just so Winx, like, the friendship moment, the representation, the core, the hug that Stella initiated, it's just so perfect, and it's one of my favorite I think my favorite Fate moments ever in the entire series.
Yeah, definitely.
Of Fate, not Winx Club as a franchise, but Fate. That needed to be said. But something I wanna point out too, because as we know, Wicked just came out, the movie version of the musical, and the title of this episode is "Only Bad Witches Are Ugly." Nope, that's not what it is. It's "Are you a good
Oh.
witch or a bad witch?" Uh, but that's the thing, right? It comes from The Wizard of Oz when Glinda asks Dorothy about her, allegiances and, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And she's like, old and ugly. And like, well, I am a witch. She's like, but you're so beautiful. And there's that popular TikTok sound of like, why did you ask if I was a bad witch? So funny. Anyway, just very serendipitous though. This episode rewatch just happens to be coming out around the time that Wicked is coming out. That's so
Fate.
funny to me. Truly. But are you a good witch or a bad witch? And I think that like honestly applies so well because I mean they've done such a good job the whole season, like applying these um either classical literatures or poems or some type of art, like relating to magic and like lore and stuff to the episodes themselves that they titled them after. And like they just did a great job with this one, because it's like, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And that can apply to Bloom, that can apply to Rosalind, that can apply to Sebastian, that can apply to Gray now. Like it applies to like even Sky. He's asking himself, am I good or am I bad? I just like killed my dad. Like hello. Like everybody is kind of wrestling with this question. And I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, great. Yeah, like I mean, yeah, every character. Yeah, that's a really good way to put that.
So on that note, we will continue on next episode with Fate, episode 6, season 2. So thank you guys for listening and joining us on this a very deep dive of Fate the Winx Saga, and we will catch you next time. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to like or subscribe on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. The theme for the Winx Forever podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.